Welcome to the Motorsport Coaching Podcast, sponsored by Motivate Training and Management. This is a podcast where we talk to drivers and industry experts to help you maximize your performances on and off the track. Let's get started with today's show. Hi guys, and welcome to episode 46 of the Motorsport Coaching Podcast. I am your host, Belinda Risley, and today I'm joined by one of my great friends, Greg Jacobs. Greg is a strength and conditioning coach since 1994. He has worked with state and national level athletes in swimming, cycling, triathlon, kayaking, and basketball. He's a qualified Pilates instructor since 2001 and has worked in some of Melbourne's leading physiotherapy practices, gyms, and Pilates studios. He opened his own studio, Stable Base, in 2005 and continues to provide strength and conditioning, Pilates, and personal training to over 100 people. So guys, if you've ever been interested in Pilates and the benefits of mobility and flexibility, this is the episode for you. If you haven't seen it already, we've launched a brand new website, so please race over to motivatetraining.com.au to check it out. There, you'll have access to our closed Facebook groups, the Motorsport Motorsport Sponsorship and Motorsport Fitness, and also a brand new ebook for you guys to download. And more importantly, there's a subscribe button where you can get these episodes every week sent directly to you. So head over to motivatetraining.com.au. Now let's welcome Greg to the show. So thanks, Greg, for joining me today.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me.
So we are friends, and I'm very excited to finally get you onto the show. I've been asking pretty much since the concept of a podcast came into my head around about 2016, but we're finally here.
Great.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I started in the mid-90s originally I got into the fitness industry because I was looking for I guess some help with my own sporting performance. So late in my youth at high school, I got a really good dose of glandular fever and spent basically a year in bed. And so then when I wanted to start playing sport again, I was just really, really unfit and out of shape. And in a small country town in Tassie back then, there was no such thing as fitness or anything. You went to cricket training and you played cricket, and that was it. You went to football training and you played football. So the concept of actually getting fit or strong or whatever to play your sport was kind of unheard of. So, so I just started reading a lot of books and realised that I needed to get fit and strong before I could go back to playing my sports. And, just started reading, and then, went to Monash Uni and become what was then called a fitness leader, which sort of included everything from working in the gym to taking aerobics classes to teaching swimming to, looking back now, it's pretty hilarious. I was just lucky that the guy that took the strength training part of that course was a strength and conditioning coach and was tangled up with the Strength and Conditioning Association. So he became a bit of a mentor and sort of explained to me that there is a thing called a strength and conditioning coach and what that involved. And I thought, this is actually the path I want to go down. So then I went and got my initial qualification as a strength and conditioning coach. And as so the rest is history. So.
And what does a strength and conditioning coach do?
Okay, so the on paper, the textbook answer to that question is strength and conditioning coach specialises in the physical preparation of athletes. Mm-hmm. So what we're trained to do is analyse the sport or the activity that the person wants to train for, and we look at things like potential injury sites, the mechanisms of those injuries, and then what does that athlete need to perform. So energy systems, whether it's an aerobic activity or an anaerobic activity, the specific type of strength they need. Do they need to be explosive? Do they need strength endurance? Do they need a high level of maximal strength? All that sort of stuff, very specific. Then we also look at mobility. Do they need to increase, do they need to do a bunch of stretching, become more flexible to perform their sport? Touch and nutrition. So basically all the physical stuff that an athlete needs to be able to do their sport. And then you work hand in hand with a sports-specific coach, maybe a dietitian, maybe a sports psychologist, all that sort of stuff. So, but purely the physical stuff is what we deal with.
Okay, and can you tell us a little bit more about mobility? What is mobility?
I guess mobility is, where it's slightly different to flexibility. So some people sort of blur those lines, but I guess mobility is being able to get your body into the position it needs to be in to be able to perform the task and try to do that effortlessly. So, if you're tight and restricted in your movement, it's going to suck up more energy, put more stress on the body, potentially create injury. So what we want to be able to do is move freely to perform the task we've got to perform, whether that's your day-to-day life or for a specific sport.
And you currently are the founder and director of Stable Base, based in Camberwell in Victoria. What is Stable Base?
As a business or as a philosophy? But so as a business, we originally started as a Pilates studio, just teaching Pilates, and then I always wanted to be able to do everything that I do, but do it under the one roof rather than have to move across several sites to do it. So in the first couple of years we were in business, we just taught Pilates, and I've reintroduced strength and conditioning and personal training. So now probably a third of my week is spent dealing with Pilates. A third of my week would be acting as a strength and conditioning coach to various athletes. So I work with at the moment, working with a lot of cyclists, and particularly kind of an unknown or relatively unknown sport here in Australia, but it will become huge, I think, a sport called cyclocross, which is just kind of like this hybrid between road racing and mountain biking. And it's big in Europe, and it is awesome because it's a great spectator sport. And the athletes that I'm working with in that are just phenomenal. They're great. A little bit crazy, which is always good fun, and just so fit and so strong, and work so hard. Just love being in that pain zone, which is always fun. And then general personal training stuff. So I guess because of the Pilates background and the fact that I've got Pilates there, I've formed a relationship with a lot of doctors and osteopaths and physios and that in the area. So a lot of clients that come for personal training are coming from, they're very deconditioned, really out of shape, or they've been injured doing something else, some other form of training or exercise. So they're coming in needing someone who can sort of work around their injuries and sort of get them back on track. So, it's good fun.
So obviously you do work with males, and you're saying you do work with athletes. I find that there's a lot of stigma when it comes to doing Pilates or mind-body exercises, that sometimes the males think, it's really just for girls. Could you possibly talk us through what is Pilates and what's the benefit of having a stable base when it comes to athletic performance?
Okay. Big. It's a big question. Yeah, definitely the gender thing's been interesting over the years. And when I started in Pilates, definitely you'd rock up to a Pilates class and I'd be the only bloke there. And even when I trained as a Pilates instructor I think it was 2000, when I did my training as a Pilates instructor, there was myself, one other guy, and 12 girls, all 9 of which were ex-ballet dancers. And that was very much kind of the Pilates scene at the time. I guess the way, Castrol used to run an ad, and the catchphrase was "oils ain't oils," and it was about the quality of different oils. And now Pilates is everywhere, but I got to say that Pilates ain't Pilates. There's what gets done under the banner of Pilates now is so varied, and a lot of the stuff that's around now is nothing to do with what Joseph Pilates was about, his philosophies and his ideals and things like that. So I'll only talk about my approach to Pilates and what we try and achieve. And I guess what I'd say about our approach to Pilates is that it's simply about teaching people how to move better. So not so much strength or fitness, it's more looking at it from a skill point of view. And the focus for us is on efficiency of movement. So if you were a runner, for example, if I could get you to run your 10K run, but do it with 10% less energy, that's even better than getting you 10% fitter or 10% stronger. Okay, so if you can get the same output, but it costs you less to get that output, then that's a real win. So imagine if you could get a car engine to produce 10% more power, but it doesn't use more fuel, or produce the same amount of power and use 10% less fuel. So that's what Pilates is about. It's more about trying to achieve efficiency and economy of movement. So Joseph Pilates had a saying, you don't use 10 pounds of force to do 5 pounds of work. Okay, so that's kind of one of the central things we look on, is like don't work harder than you need to, work smarter. Yeah, so Pilates, the big part of Pilates is simply looking at the sequence of events. So some muscles don't necessarily need to be strong. Where the dysfunction occurs is in the timing of when those muscles switch on and do their job. So a lot of people these days have, like currently glutes are a big thing at the moment, and lots of people are your glutes don't work, or your glutes turned off. In most cases, glutes don't necessarily need to be that strong. Like they're a massive muscle and the potential for power is huge. But most people's problem isn't because their glutes aren't strong enough. It's because their glutes don't turn on at the right time. Okay, so it's a sequencing thing. So it's kind of like the cylinders in an engine. Yeah, if the timing's not right, performance is really reduced. And you don't fix that problem by putting in a bigger engine. Yeah, you don't just simply build bigger, stronger muscles if the issue is the timing. So that's one of the things that Pilates is really good for. It's about teaching people to move better, use the right muscle for the right job at the right time. Yeah, I guess why I started doing Pilates myself and really liked it was because I could see, like working in mainstream gyms and things like that, you could see that people had those problems, but because of the environment they were in and the mentality they were in when they go into a gym, they just think it's all about grunt and hard work and just push harder and lift heavier and work harder. Whereas if you take people away from that environment and put them into the Pilates studio, it sort of allows them to then think differently. So then you've got a better chance of getting them to just focus on different things and prioritise different things. So just made it much, much easier to teach people the stuff they needed to learn.
So the Pilates that you teach now, that's on the reformers?
No, it's on everything. So, originally, we didn't differentiate Pilates mat work from Pilates reformer. The reformer is only one of half a dozen pieces of equipment that Joseph Pilates invented, and they've all got their places. It's only sort of been since the mainstream fitness industry started dabbling in Pilates that the reformers have sort of become a bit more well-known and famous, and everyone thinks that reformer Pilates is better than other forms. It's rubbish. It really is rubbish. If you understand the history of it, the reformer, the basis of the reformer was actually for people who couldn't get out of bed. Mm-hmm. All right, so to a certain extent, if you can walk into the Pilates studio, you're already past the reformer stage. Yeah, so it's that sort of not really understanding the history of why it's about. A lot of the other stuff with Pilates is the first and second and third generation of Pilates instructors were all ballet dancers, and the ballet community were the biggest consumers of Pilates. So a lot of the repertoire and the exercises and the techniques and the terminology around Pilates is so ballet specific. And, ballet is a phenomenal art form and / sport. But people who do ballet at that high level, they've been doing it since they were little kids. So their body is built for it from a very young age, and they have unique demands and unique abilities. So, your average person does not need to be doing the sort of stuff that a ballet dancer needs to do. Yeah. So if you look at exercise from a risk versus benefit point of view, a lot of stuff that gets done in Pilates nowadays, you go, risk of injury versus benefit, which is, why are you doing that? But with sort of, it's become much more popular now, and, people have tried to make it sexy and marketable, and so it's kind of what gets done in a lot of Pilates places now is very far removed from what Pilates was originally developed for and intended for. And
so, Greg, if someone's looking forward to getting started in Pilates, what are what should they look for when it comes to finding a great studio? Is there, should they do like just one-off sessions? Like how many sessions per week? I sometimes see that they offer 8-week courses, or do you think it's something that should be built into their training program?
Yeah, you've got to think of Pilates as all exercises. So if you're a motorsport person, or you're a footballer or a basketballer or whatever you are, or even if you're just someone who just has a hit of golf on the weekend and you just want to be able to do that without screwing up your back, you've got to think of all the other forms of training and exercise as tools. Okay, so you want someone to help you with your physical preparation, find an expert, find a specialist. If you've got a plumbing problem, you don't go talking to an electrician, you hire a plumber. If your car breaks down, you take it to a mechanic, not a painter. Same sort of thing with your body. Treat it like a machine. So find an expert. So the way to do that would be, basically go and speak to people, or at least have a conversation over the phone or email. Don't get so caught up in what qualifications people have got. I think it's much more important to find out the person's history. What have they done themselves, and why have they ended up being either a trainer or a Pilates instructor or whatever. So back in the day, you couldn't train as a Pilates instructor unless you'd done 200 plus hours of Pilates yourself as a participant. Now, as the market's becoming more saturated, more and more people are offering training courses, all that stuff's gone out the window. So you can get a qualification as a Pilates instructor without ever having done Pilates yourself, which is it just doesn't work. It'd be like, would you take swimming lessons from someone who's never actually been in the water? It's the same deal. So look at what the person's own history is before becoming a Pilates instructor, and why they become a Pilates instructor. That I think is more important than what qualification they've got. Yeah. And then the other thing is, like I said, going back to that sort of analogy with a tradesman, Pilates and exercises and strength training and mobility work and all the rest, they're all just tools. Yeah. So it's about finding the right tool for the right problem. Yeah. So it's like a mechanic, that they may be awesome with a spanner set, but, it's no good if the problem requires a screwdriver. Yeah. And it's the same thing with exercise. People need to get back to going, what is the problem you need solved? Okay, this is the best tool for that job. So it may be Pilates, it may not be Pilates. But even if it is Pilates, then, there's a couple of thousand exercises in the Pilates world. So, what's the right exercise for the right person? And you obviously don't get that when you're in a big group class and everyone's doing the same thing. It's not going to cater to the individual needs. So if you really enjoy working out like that and you're just after a workout and to move your body, great. But if if you've got specific needs, like you're a motorsport athlete or a golfer or whatever, then you need to attend sessions that are tailored to your needs, not a generic all over sort of hamburger with a lot. So
it's probably best to get your own personalised Pilates instructor to help you fix what's wrong.
That's right.
However, Pilates is great for injury prevention as well.
Can be, yeah. Once again, depending on the specifics, yeah.
I guess most common injuries that we have in motorsport, depending on what type of vehicle they're driving, but it's a lot of neck, lower back, and arms, forearms, and stuff like that. So I guess people would be going, should I be going to Pilates, or should I just be doing massages or something like that? Saying there's all those tools out there, is there any advice you have for someone to try and identify what the right tool is?
You'd kind of need a bit of an assessment from someone who knows what they're doing. So you look at what the underlying cause is. Okay, so I haven't dealt much with motorsport, but as I said, I work a lot with cyclists. So for example, the number one injury in cycling is actually necks. So apart from the acute stuff that happens when you crash your bike, which hopefully you don't, but the number one injury problem in cycling, both recreational cyclists and professional competitive top-level cyclists, is neck, and that's just because of the postural strain and stuff like that. So, you can train your body to become better at handling that stress. So it's a case of looking at, okay, is the posture on the bike as good as it possibly can be? So even though the neck may be the problem, the person may need to work on strength and mobility somewhere else in the body. They need to look at, is the bike set up properly for them? Yep. And then it's a case of understanding the difference between training the body for stability as opposed to training the body for strength. And this, once again, a lot of people don't understand. So stability in the exercise world means the ability to resist unwanted movement. So simply with your neck, simply having the right muscles working to keep your neck in a good position, okay? As opposed to strengthening the neck, which would be like strengthening the muscles that move your head. So different muscles have different functions. So, yeah, a lot of people mistake, or they try and improve their stability by training their strength, okay? And the stronger you are able to achieve strength, but it comes at a cost because those muscles that move your neck are generally bigger, so they suck up more energy. Okay, so it's not an efficient way to keep your neck stable. You're better off training the muscles that are designed for stability and training them with stability training, and then train the muscles for movement and, try to strengthen those. So there's two different groups of muscles, each with a specific purpose. They should be trained specifically to their need and their purpose. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sure does for me. But obviously you're talking about language, we're living in the same world here, so no.
Yeah. It's the same with the lumbar spine. So once again, most people need to improve their lumbar stability as opposed to strength. But people talk about core strength without really understanding what they mean or what they talk about. So you can strengthen the big muscles, the big outside abdominal muscles and the big back muscles and everything, but those muscles are actually designed to work at a high level of force for a short period of time. Yep. So they're not the best muscles to train for just keeping the spine stable.
Yeah, it's that whole cliche when people love doing crunches to get their six pack.
Yeah, exactly. And being in the industry a long time, I'm so old that I was in the industry before the word core was used, and the core was introduced and started to be used to try and get people out of this abdominal crunch type, let's just build up our abs mentality. But now it's kind of been perverted and misunderstood, and now people are doing crunches and going, this is a great core exercise. I'm like, no.
Really? I hope not. We don't teach that here. We do, however, always recommend people when they're starting off with the fitness program to try and get a postural analysis from a local treating health practitioner. So even though we have an online app and do online fitness programs, one of the first things they have to do is actually go get a postural assessment by an osteo, chiro, physio, PT, EP, exercise phys. I always talk in acronyms, but until we know what's weak and what's strong, it's very hard for us as trainers to identify your training program, and that's why everything we do here is specialised.
Yeah, great, awesome. Yeah.
Is there any apps or anything? Do you encourage anything like that? We've just talked about going to see a training health professional before they start that.
Yeah, I really think. And I've got a huge bias here, obviously, so I'll put my hand up straight away and say this is a very biased opinion. One of the things that makes my job really hard is working with people is when they have a little bit of knowledge.
Yes.
So I try to discourage people from, unless you're going to do a deep dive and study the bejesus out of it, leave it alone. Leave it to the professionals. Yeah. So I don't encourage people to read, a bit out of a magazine or look on social media or get an app or something like that until they've got a lot more knowledge and can put some context around that information. But as a starting point, people need to go to an expert and, get sorted out, get an assessment about what your specific needs are, what the highest priority for you are, and then just work on that and understand that it's a process. I haven't seen any really good apps or anything like that because, once again, it's like one of those group exercise type approaches. It's all based on the assumption that your starting point is here and that you want to get to here. And that's really not many people. If your starting point's over here somewhere and where you're trying to get to is here, then this thing doesn't work for you. So you spend time and money and energy for very little return. So, particularly when what we're talking about isn't your main activity. If you just want to do Pilates or strength training for strength training's sake, awesome. But if you're an athlete from a different sport and the Pilates or the strength training or whatever is to assist that, then the other stuff needs to be very, very specific. So, get an assessment, work with a professional. It doesn't have to be ongoing, but at least for your starting point, and then you've got more context around whatever other information that comes in at a later date.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That makes sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
You just touched base about social media. Why do you think that we only kind of see photos, I guess, of guys doing heavy weightlifting or their gym photos? We know that athletes do Pilates and yoga and meditation. Why do you think males don't promote exercises as much?
I could really upset a lot of people here, but I've never shied away from doing that before, so I start now.
That's right.
Look, it's about appealing to the lowest common denominator, unfortunately, and please hope people don't take offence at that. But basically, a lot of that stuff on social media, 90% of it is to sell shit. Okay, let's be honest. It's someone trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you their weight loss program or their gym program or their supplements or their clothing or whatever it is. The thing with social media too is it's appealing to an audience that has this much of an attention span. So it's got to be something quick that grabs someone's attention. Probably late at night after they've had a bit to drink, or they've just split up with someone and feeling lonely and vulnerable, or whatever it is. But it's not necessarily about the quality of the information that's provided. It's about mass appeal and what's going to sell something at the end of the day. So that's what drives it. So that's why we get these sort of get bombarded with these images of what they think the general population want to see and are going to invest in. So you get images of guys with six packs lifting heavy weights, and you get images of skinny chicks in lycra doing yoga and Pilates.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
However, that's not really the case, though.
Sorry?
However, that's not really the case.
No, it shouldn't be. No, exactly. But and this is kind of where I could go off on a tangent here about what I don't like about the fitness industry as a whole. We as an industry, we do a great job of making fit people fitter. Yeah. But there's 80% of the population out there who won't go anywhere near us, and they're the people that most need our help. But our whole marketing and our imaging and everything is such a deterrent to those people, which is just wrong.
Well, we started with our online app a new service called Motivate Training for Me, which is for like the pit crews and the families of drivers. Resources there, but it's kind of like, let's just move all together. And if they see the banner and they don't want to come under that motorsport brand, we started Motivate Training for Me, and it's just
great.
Whatever works best for them. And
that's great. I mean, for people these days, even if they're not athletes, what people need to realise is that you're going to live longer, and you're going to be expected to work to much later in life. If your body's bashed up, those last 20, 30 years of your life are going to be pretty unpleasant. And it is. It's like maintaining your car. You don't just drive your car, race it hard, then park it in the garage and then drag it out next time you're going to race. You maintain it, hopefully. Hopefully, And part of that maintenance process is looking for potential problems. So trying to change a part out rather than wait for the car to break down and then fix it. The idea is to prevent it breaking down in the first place. And people sort of get that around a vehicle, but they don't do the same thing to their body or their mind. Yeah, and you can't get, or you can, but it's much harder to get replacement parts for your body. So it's even more important that you maintain it. And that's once again for athletes, doing stuff like massage and stretching and eating properly and core stability work and all that sort of stuff, it may not make you race faster this coming weekend. But what it does is maybe give you another 4 or 5 years in your career.
Yeah, and that's why we kind of wanted to encourage the pit crews and the parents to get involved in their own fitness and well-being, because they are a part of that team. Because, for example, if they're racing an endurance event, they're going to have to be on the ball when it comes to changing tyres or putting fuel into the car, depending on how many cars they have within their race team. So they actually have a physical component to their job as well, even though they're not might be the appointed driver per se. It's important that the whole team is well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing, because I would imagine, having been involved with the sport, but I would imagine a lot of those people are doing that sort of stuff because they love it and they're probably not getting paid a cent for it.
Yeah.
Right. So,
like mechanics, like their trades and background, and that, but they don't see themselves to be a worthy part of the team. Or they may, they might not think they have to be fit in order to do the role.
That's right, yes. So, but, wait until they bugger up their knee or they bugger up their back or their shoulder and can't do those things anymore. And that's where you're going to see a pretty unhappy individual. So, a lot of that stuff, a lot of those lifestyle type injuries and everything sport related are avoidable. So, I see a lot of lower back injury. I see a ton of people with lower back injuries, and I see, tradies come in and, they've got this lower back injury when they're in their 30s. But then I see a lot of lawyers and accountants with exactly the same injury, but, they get it in their 40s and 50s, 60s. Okay, so it's the same injury. It's just the tradies, use their body more, so everything wore out that much faster. But both groups end up pretty frustrated, unhappy individuals because they can't do either what they need to do to earn a living or what they want to do. So, and in both cases, it's if they've done a bit of maintenance in their 20s, they wouldn't have that problem later on. So
they had a stable base.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Well, Greg, thank you very much for your time today. I really
thank you.
A wealth of knowledge that you've presented to us around Pilates, mobility, and what is a strength and conditioning coach.
Cool, thank you.
So all of Greg's details for his website, not that there's much on there, because he is based in Camberwell. He does have his own practice there. So if you are in Camberwell, Victoria, feel free to go on down to Toorak Road. Is that right?
Toorak Road, yep.
Yes.
1350B Toorak Road. You don't just have to be in Camberwell. You can come from far away places like Hawthorn or Richmond or somewhere really bizarre.
That's right. And thanks again.
No worries at all. Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone for listening to this week's show. I really hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. Now, remember, all the show notes with the links and the specials mentioned in today's show are available over at motivatetraining.com.au. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate if you could head to iTunes or Stitcher, type in Motorsport Coaching, subscribe, and leave us a review. Each week, I'll read them out and you'll go into monthly draw to win a fantastic prize. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at motivatetraining.com.au or head over to our Facebook page at Motivate to Tea. Until next time, take care.